Good day, everyone, and welcome to the Resistance Bureau, where my colleagues and I shine a light on the global struggle for freedom, the ongoing campaigns against government oppression, and the oft undercovered issues in Africa that we believe merit broader attention. It is in this spirit that I am joined today by Samuel Baker, an investigative journalist and human rights defender from Rwanda. Samuel is a co-founder of M28 Investigates, a nonprofit media outlet that produces undercover and open source intelligence. Their most recent project, Rwanda Classified, was a hugely successful undertaking that included the help of a consortium of 50 journalists from 17 media outlets in 11 different countries. This project garnered global headlines and, of course, a rebuke from the Rwandan regime for documenting the long pattern of repression, assassination attempts, and the use of surveillance technologies to silence critics of the country's long-ruling despot, Paul Kagame. Thank you so much for joining me today, Samuel. And let's just jump right in and begin with this Rwanda classified investigation, as I think it will really help shape the contours and direction of today's conversation, especially for those who may not be entirely familiar with the situation in the country. So please, if you could tell us what you and your team uncovered during the course of this research, and how did the release of this project impact you on a personal level?
Yeah, thank you, please, for having me. And yeah, when Rwanda Classified came out, it wasn't just a report. It was a repertoire and a painstaking collaborative effort of different journalists that peeled back the polished surface of the Rwandan state to reveal something much darker that the government of Kagame tends to polish most of the time. So, through different leaked documentations, personal testimonies, and forensic investigations, it laid bare a well-oiled machinery of surveillance, intimidation, extra-territorial repression. And also, this wasn't just about silencing critics at home, it was about also the Kagame's regime of controlling the narrative wherever it might surface, even in the Western world. So the impact was seismic, and especially for those of us who have followed or lived in Rwanda. And also, my family was still in Rwanda by then, and it was very difficult. When I talk about my family, of course, it's the nuclear family, and that was very difficult for my daughter to deal with it. But of course, the extended family still face a lot of challenges because of this project and other work I do as an individual. But yeah, for years, Rwanda was held up. As an African transformation example country, and not because these stories are not there, but because maybe the government have been doing a lot of work to make sure that these stories are not told by anyone, and also considering the history of the Rwanda as a country, where they tend to balance it, to put it on the same balance with the Rwanda after the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi. So this give a chance for the regime of Kagame to really make use of it. And Kagame have managed to really make use of this because after the genocide, he made sure that he equate the criticism of his regime as genocide denial. And these have been something people have really absorbed in and have become very difficult. But yeah, for Rwanda Classified, and we managed to really bring all these stories to the light of Western world people to understand what's the true color of Rwanda, and also tell the story because it starts specifically on the agenda of Forbidden Stories that put it together, because Forbidden Story is mainly a news organization, which is non-profit, that try to do stories of journalists that are in danger or have died or have not managed to complete their stories. So in this case, we are working on a story specifically on the Rwandan specific role in DRC, specifically the soldiers, because we had been seeing Rwandan soldiers dying and Rwandan people publishing a lot of rest in peace messages. So this became the lead to this story. And the main reason why Forbidden Story do this is to send a message to everyone or anyone who kill a journalist that killing a journalist cannot really kill the story. And this is how we came up with the Rwanda Classified, looking into everything that the Kagame regime do. For me personally, it was unsettling and deeply affirming, and unsettling because it confirmed just how deep the culture of fear and control runs in our society, but affirming because it proved that truth has a way of finding light at a certain point, and even when buried wherever, and using all because Kagame pay a lot of money into the image polishing projects. And yeah, from nowhere, we had this project really bringing up whatever I have been doing. And it reminded me why we speak up, why we write, and why we must always be willing to look behind the narrative, especially when it is wrapped in growing statistics and sanitized slogans and with a lot of Western backups sponsoring these regions. Yeah.
Great. Thank you for laying out that context for us. And as you just elaborated upon the targeting of critics and political opponents of Paul Kagame, both inside Rwanda and those living abroad and in exile during the diaspora, is undisputed at this point. I think that that fact has really been laid bare more and more so in recent years. And you mentioned the forbidden stories and how the killing of one journalist doesn't kill the story. And of course, that makes me think of John Williams and Twali. Has there been any updates on his particular case and his really the questions surrounding his death? Has there been anything recent on that?
No, the case of John, of course, is one of the main cases that led
Right.
Forbidden Stories to really take on this Rwanda Classified project. But since then, we have not seen any update from the Rwandan regime either in doing some investigations and try to prove that really this was a car accident. Of course, the reason we went on with this as in doing the project is because there was a lot of evidence that prove the other way. In the first, they say John died in two different places. Officials mentioning different places, and which are very far from each other. And also, John had already been part of the story we are doing, and again have been facing a lot of threats. Even before the day he died, he had sent a message to someone trying to say people are following me. So
Right.
all those are reasons to really believe that something was behind this. And of course, a journalist went to Rwanda to investigate this, and the police did not have enough evidence to prove that this was an accident. And also, the car, the motorcycle that are said to have been part of the accident had a lot of inconsistency in the statements, in the court documents, and this was a clear indication that it's set up. But the main issue is that it is not the first time critics die in so-called accidents, and
Yeah.
this is where the line is drawn and say, we have seen a lot of people being said they died in accidents, but just because they oppose the governments. And considering the nature of the stories and the state John Williams used to really deal with, then there were enough evidence for us to look at it from this other angle.
Right. And of course, among the most consistently outspoken figures over the years has been Victoire Ingabire, who just last week was again arrested by Rwandan authorities. And this sends a clear message, of course, that if a peaceful opposition figure can be targeted, then no one is truly safe inside the country. Please explain to our audience why her case is really so emblematic of this larger pattern that you're speaking to, but also, if you could, the importance of its timing. In other words, why do you think, and I know there's a lot of speculation out there, why do you think authorities chose to target Victoire at this particular moment in time? Would love your thoughts on that.
I think Victoire Ingabire is more than a political figure. She represents possibilities, and the possibility of a Rwanda that allow dissent without punishment, and of a country that doesn't fear opposition but grows stronger because of it. So I think this is the figure we could actually see her in, and her recent arrest was jarring and but not surprising in the same way because it followed a familiar script, vague charges, public accusation without due process, because this is how the character assassination, that's how it works in Rwanda. Before someone is jailed, we first pass through all these stages. So with the public accusation without any due process and an air of legal threats, and the accusation comes on time per time, that she was planning to disrupt public orders, leading to criminal organization. Yet there's been credible evidence. Not there have not been any credible evidence, no transparent investigation, just a chilling message to anyone thinking of challenging the system. You are being watched or will be an act. And also, you can when you look at the case of Victoire and even the six people that are accused with her, is that they are trying to challenge the government. They were caught reading a book of how they can change a government peacefully. That's the role of opposition. That's what they have to do, of course. So you cannot arrest people because they are trying to learn on the way of opposing you peacefully. So then you have no reason or understanding of what an opposition have to be, because an opposition is a group of people that are willing to challenge the sitting government in a peaceful manner. So if you arrest these people in this context, it all comes back to the zero ground of what we always talk about. And also among these people is a journalist that was arrested. He had went to cover the event. So how would you arrest a journalist? Because he was not participating, he was not part of the group, he was just covering the event, and now he's 3 4 years in jail waiting trial. All that comes out to what someone can say is the true color of Rwanda, or now they deal with the opposition. And again, of course, this is speculations, considering the current state. It's now 2 weeks without understanding the health of the president, Kagame. And there is a lot of rumors about his health. At some extent, people are posting online that he's dead, and the government have failed to clarify on these rumors. And this also comes in with other rumors of parties in Rwanda struggling to maintain power, people that came from Burundi, others that came from Uganda. And yeah, eliminating Victoire Ingabire means that she still have the powers as an opposition in the country. And this political setup can try to exclude her from active politics post Kagame, and through getting her jailed, that's something that can also be achievable. So the timing is deeply significant. We are in deep post-election period after Kagame's latest re-election also, and just as his government and is navigating or even turbulent regional relations, considering the DRC current situation. So with the government of Rwanda and the government of DRC signing an agreement just a few days from now, that's 27th, and at the same time, uh, arresting opposition leaders in the country is like rebranding back to the global politics, where they have lost credibility because of their crimes in the RC. The government have been sanctioned in Europe by the US government, State of Departments minister like James Kabarebe was sanctioned, and other generals were sanctioned. So that was like a loss of credibility of what they have been doing, and this is a result of their war crimes committed in DRC. But now, as they are trying to gain the momentum of their rebranding using the agreement with the DRC, they are arresting the opposition back home. But this agreement with Trump administration and DRC is taking over the news and allowing them to really treat the opposition back in the country with impunity, and no one is really there to check them. And even these offices are not checking them because they are completely in context. The Rwandan regime have been strengthened and backed up by Western governments, and they have supported it, they have strengthened it, and yeah, sometimes what they do, they are involved indirectly, but they are involved in one way or another.
Right. It's really interesting to hear you talk about these dynamics because, for those of us on the outside looking in, the chasm between reality and perception is so big. And you mentioned, for instance, the ongoing conflict in Eastern Congo, and the role of James Kabaribi, who was sanctioned by the Trump administration. But I believe it was just a week prior to that, he was visiting Washington, D.C. and being featured on the stage of prominent think tanks here in Washington, D.C., and expounding his virtues as a leader in the Great Lakes region. It's astonishing, that there are so many examples of that. Kagame coming to Washington and visiting Ivy League schools and getting presented
Yeah,
with diplomas and being lauded by the Gates Foundation and all these development and philanthropic organizations. It's really astounding the number of examples over the years. So that's why I think these conversations are really important, is to really let people know what's happening inside the country. And along with that, just to continue along this line, you just alluded to the fact that there's been quite a bit of speculation on the apparently declining health of the president, who turns 67, I believe, later this year. There have been consistent rumors online, for instance, about these supposed flights abroad in which he's seeking medical care, his absence from public life, which you mentioned, which has been notable. So, as we close out here, help us parse out the facts and perhaps maybe read the tea leaves for us a bit and provide your thoughts on this situation. And in particular, the issue of presidential succession, which I know is always a hot button issue in countries that have been ruled by the same person for a generation, as is the case in Rwanda. So, what are the social and political dynamics that could potentially pry open here as these discussions start being had, perhaps more openly and in public? And what will you be keeping an eye on, and particularly going forward?
yeah. President Kagame's health is no longer just a private matter; it's a public anxiety now. And in the last few weeks, his uncharacteristic absence, like and from the public life, and the states of confusion with the government becoming silent, have fed a storm of speculations, as you have mentioned. And some says he's unwell and receiving treatments in Europe, to be specific, in German. And others claim far more dramatic scenarios. None of them are verified so far. And what's striking is not just rumors, but now quickly it fills the vacuum when institutions are built around one man, and rather than one system. So Kagame is not just a president; he's the architect of the Rwandan society, the enforcer, the face, the voice of post-genocide Rwanda. So for nearly 3 decades, he have been omnipresent. To imagine Rwanda without him is for many, and enter a void. And that's why even the possibility of illness trigger not just curiosity but existential questions, because he have built this system around him. We don't have any functioning system in our country. All countries subject to the executive, which heads him. The country is micromanaged by the intelligence from as low as the village level to the cabinet, and the parliament is not in position to question about such useful things in the country. So the fact that this whole system is built on one individual, when he disappear 1 week, 2 week, it does not only become a question of someone is relaxing, is sick. It's a question of where is the country heading in his absence. So the issue of succession isn't theoretical anymore, and that's why I link it. I can link it even with Ingabire's arrest, because what's and this is even getting more complicated, if I may say. Rwanda doesn't have a transparent succession mechanism. We don't have, like, we know according to the constitution, if the president is absent, then the Senate president takes over. But we know practically this is not possible. And we don't have a transparent succession mechanism, not because the constitution doesn't exist, but because power has never really been dispersed, and it's been centralized tightly and deliberately in Kagame's hand. And if that's grip loosened by choice or by fate, what fills the gap? That's a question to ask anyone. And will the LPF rally around a designated successor? Will we see infightings in the middle of the people that are part of the RPF? Or will we see technologic transitions, like maybe handing it over to a family member? Will the next chapter all be written in continuity, or it will become more dangerous than we have witnessed in our society? But perhaps the most pressing question is not who comes next, but what kind of Rwanda they will inherit. That's the biggest question. And a Rwanda where dissent is criminalized, where fear governs political ambitions, and where the past still roam over the future, or a Rwanda that opens, or however slow it can be, to more pluralistic and participatory mode in politics. So we all don't know, but it's really a challenging situation. And I'm sure everyone who is concerned about Rwanda politics on a day and day is worried about what comes next in our society in absence of Kagame. As I said, not because we don't have the right procedure of how to do that, because the constitution suggests that the Senate president can take over, but because we know very well these institutions don't work, and this means even the constitution have become too weak to protect ourselves as Rwandans. So this makes it very, very, very difficult to really consider it as something that will save us when we come into that period of time. And that's, I think, is something that is worrying, not only, I think, for me, but anyone who is really concerned about Rwanda and how things go in our country.
Yeah, absolutely. And hearing you discuss these issues, I'm reminded of a quote by Kagame himself back in 2012, I believe, in which he essentially said, "If I've been unable to mentor or to name or to lay the groundwork for a
Yeah,
successor, that should be a reason I should not continue as president." And he said it means that he himself had not created the capacity for a post Kagame Rwanda, and that he would see it as a personal failure. I'd be interested, or I wonder what he would think about himself saying that 13 years ago now today.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But with all that said, in closing, is there anything we didn't get to today that you feel that our audience should be paying attention to in the next few days, weeks, or months ahead?
Yeah, I think nothing much. The Rwandan context, I think Rwanda today is a paradox, and it is both admired and at the same time feared, praised, and criticized, and modern and deeply repressive. And the stories we tell about it of transformation, security, and order are real as we journalists. And but so are the stories of exile, surveillance, and silencing dissident in the country and abroad. All the stories are mixed up and are real. So Rwanda Classified itself. The arrest of Ingabire and the uncertainty of Rwandan of Kagame's health, uh, they are not disconnected events, and they are threads in the same channel. A regime gripping with its legacy and legitimacy and its future. And maybe, just maybe, there are tremendous signals that something deeper is happening. A change is somewhere on the door knocking for reform, for reinvention, for Rwandans, because under the surface there is another Rwanda waiting. One of the younger and connected and increasingly unwilling to accept fear as the foundation of peace in the country is somewhere waiting that this have to get out and we really take over and take our country into control. So I think it's high time that Rwandans and mainly the youth take control of what is happening to our country, because if we don't do it, then we are going to pass it the wrong way to the next generation, which would be our failure too. As I may end quoting Kagame himself, as you said, he said, if he failed to get a successor, it's an indication of the failure of his governance. And he said this before changing the constitution. So I think as of now is a good example of a failure in governance.
Right. Well, thank you so much for that. And I think the profound point you made regarding fear as a foundation for peace, as we know throughout history, that simply does not work. That's a recipe for disaster and a recipe for continued deterioration. And I think Rwanda, at the end of the day, might be an unfortunate story in that regard. So thank you so much for sharing your insights with us today, for taking the time to speak with me. I know I can speak on behalf of my entire team here at the Resistance Bureau to say that we appreciate your continued courage for speaking up and all that you've really been doing, both publicly and behind the scenes, to foster citizen engagement, to foster transparency inside Rwanda, as well as your sober analysis. It's really appreciated. So take good care in the meantime. I look forward to future conversations with you, and please stay safe out there. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Bye.